This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Concrete Jungle, Part 16. That last episode was 15. When we left off, Miss Brenda informed Angela that her and the children would be going with Angela to Dallas in 5 weeks. Travis was arrested while breaking into Veronica's house, and the evidence against him is rock solid thanks to Q. When LJ arrived in Dallas the next morning, he, Q, and Deuce met up to discuss Phase 2. One of the concerning things that Veronica told Q was that Travis believes that Tracy and Deuce were in on stealing his money and that together the three of them conspired to have him arrested so that they could. Deuce verified that all of the money was in fact turned over to DPD, that Veronica was instrumental in making sure that happened. At first, she was a little hesitant to cooperate with the investigation, but once she found out that Travis was still involved with his baby's mama, she was more than happy to turn over all the evidence. With that knowledge and the fact that Travis's best friend Buns was involved in the whole operation, the fellas knew that this wasn't over. They concluded that Buns still had skin in the game. He would try to recoup some of their losses, get revenge, and make things right with whomever was the big money player in the scheme. None of the men believed that Deuce and Buns were involved in a scheme of that magnitude alone. Because LJ was the least familiar with the Dallas streets, he agreed to be security for Tracy. Q was going to continue handling the investigation, and Deuce was going to follow up with DPD. Meanwhile, in Denver, Angela had gotten Melissa off to school, left Angel in Miss Brenda's capable hands, and headed into her office to meet with her office manager, Miss Bernie. When she arrived, she explained the entire plan for the Dallas move to Bernie, and then she asked Miss Bernie if she would do her the honor of moving into the guest house at the Dallas property. Bernie, it's the least that I could do, considering that I've had you move all around this country to support my business and my brand. You were a good friend to my mother. You've been a great friend to me. You're like a surrogate mother, as a matter of fact, and like a pseudo-grandmother for my children. Plus, I don't really see any good reason for you to rent or lease a place when you'll be working on getting your childhood home renovated. Bernie was in shock. Her and her brother lost their childhood home when her mother died. She said, "Angela, what are you talking about?" Angela slid a folder over to Bernie, and when she opened it, she saw that it was the deed to her childhood home in her name. Bernie started crying and asking Angela, "What did you do, baby girl?" Angela said, "Oh, nothing. I just had Jeffrey to buy your family home, the land that it's on, and the 3 adjacent houses so that you and your brother could have the estate that you all deserve. I know that your brother is getting older and he's going to need full-time care soon, and he should have that care in his home. So when you're ready to retire, you'll be able to retire to that home with him, and you'll be retiring as my chief of operations with your own land and nothing standing in your way." Bernie cried even harder. Eventually, she got herself under control. She thanked Angela, and she agreed to move into the guest house in Dallas, to accept the promotion to chief of operations, and to accept the gift of her home and new property. Angela said, "Now, we've got some planning to do. We need to make sure we get this inventory into these spas. We need to set up meetings with about 50 more spas, create a transition plan to the new property, identify and put in place staff for the warehouse here in Denver, and identify other staff who might want to come with us to Dallas. Then, on top of all of that, I'm going to Dallas in 5 weeks, and when I get back, we're going to have to make arrangements for you to go to Dallas so that you can work on staffing there." Meanwhile, in Dallas, the PI that Q put on Buns just followed him to a mortgage company. Early that morning, Buns got a call from Travis's baby mama letting him know that Travis was locked up and needed a lawyer. Buns sent the lawyer in to find out what Travis was arrested for, what his bond was, and all of the particulars. And the lawyer reported back to him that Travis was being held on $500,000 bail with no bond, meaning that it had to be all cash. When Buns found out why Travis was in jail, he was pissed. While he was inside the mortgage company, the PI went ahead and affixed a tracking device to his bumper. He returned to his car and then sat outside the mortgage company until Buns exited the building. Buns drove off, and then a second agent picked up the pursuit. Buns headed over to a well-known black-owned car wash and sat outside talking with the owner. While he and the owner, KC, talked, the PI sat listening with a long-distance listening device. He heard Buns say to Casey, "Yeah, man, I just left from Charlie's office, and he is not happy. Travis promised that he was going to be able to get some of that money out of Veronica, and instead, this fool done got locked up for grape and who knows what else, and still don't know what the hell that woman did with the money. Now, he think I'm supposed to cough up 500 G's to get him out on bail." KC said, "Nah, sound like we need to clean up this mess he created. All the charges he got because of old girl?" Buns said, "Just about. He also had a damn blick on him, though." KC said, "Yeah, he gonna have to eat that charge. But we should be able to help him with the rest of it." "So what Charlie talking about?" Charlie said he want money or bodies. "No questions asked," Buns replied. KC asked, "Well, which one we gonna hit first?" While Casey and Buns discussed their plan, the PI sent Q a text message letting him know that they needed to put a man on Casey and get the details on Charlie, the mortgage broker. Back in Denver, Angela picked Melissa up from school, took her home, helped her with her homework, gave her an afternoon snack, and waited for the occupational therapist to arrive. While Melissa had her therapy session, Miss Brenda cooked dinner, and after Melissa's therapy session, the family sat down to a cozy dinner. Angela completed the nighttime routine with the children, and afterwards, she and Miss Brenda had prayer and Bible study together. Angela soaked in her jacuzzi tub, grabbed a cup of tea, and pulled out letter number 7 from Q. When Angela opened the envelope, she was surprised to find a note with another envelope enclosed. The note said, "Angela, after I wrote the enclosed letter, I prayed, laid down, and fell asleep. I've never been much of a dreamer. I can't say that I've ever had a vision. But if there are visions to be had or dreams to be dreamt, this was one for the record books. When I woke up, I knew I had to write you this note. Before you read this letter, I need you to examine your heart. If you haven't forgiven Marcus, if there is any bitterness remaining in your heart towards Jessica, if you have any regrets about your past or the decisions that you made, if you haven't surrendered to the lessons that God intended for you to learn from the pain that you've endured, then you're not ready to read this letter. Please don't read it until you're ready. With love, Q." Angela reread the note 3 more times, and then finally, reluctantly, she set the letter aside, put it back in the large envelope where she kept all of the letters, prayed, closed her eyes, and fell asleep. The next morning, when she awoke, she felt like she hadn't slept a wink. She had so little energy. She couldn't maintain her focus during her morning Bible study and prayer. She could barely muster the energy to go on her morning run. Halfway through the run, she just gave up, turned around, and walked back to the house. Crying as she walked, she asked God to help her to set aside every weight. Miss Brenda had been on her nosy woman time, so she had been watching from the window. When Angela came inside, she asked her, "Baby, is everything all right?" Angela said, "No, I'm just so tired. I feel like I'm emotionally, mentally, and spiritually worn out, and I don't know why." Miss Brenda asked, "Did something happen, baby?" Angela said, "No, not really." And then she thought about it. She said, "I'll be right back." Then she ran upstairs, grabbed the note from the envelope with the letters in it, came back downstairs, and handed it to Miss Brenda. After reading the note, Miss Brenda looked at Angela and asked, "Have you prayed about this, baby?" Angela said, "Yes, I prayed before I went to sleep last night, and then I had the worst sleep of my life." Miss Brenda said, "Okay, baby, you go upstairs and get ready for your day, and when you're finished, you come back down, and you and I are going to pray for real." Angela went upstairs, showered, got dressed for her day, got Melissa up, and got her started on getting ready for her day. And then she returned downstairs to the kitchen, where Miss Brenda was ready with her Bible and her blessed oil. And baby, when I tell you, Miss Brenda prayed heaven down. She was so invested in the prayer that neither her or Angela noticed that Melissa had come downstairs and heard the entire prayer. When the prayer was concluded, the three of them had breakfast together, prepared by Miss Brenda, and Angela and Melissa left for the day. Angela made it through her work day. She scheduled several virtual meetings with spas who were already on tap to try out her spa line, set up meetings with influencers in the various cities where she was targeting spas. Her plan was to have the influencers work with some of the spas so that the spas would get publicity from the famous influencers while also trying her spa line. Then she would work to get in-person meetings with the ones who weren't sold and the ones that would require a lot more than free publicity from an influencer. Her marketing plan was stellar and godsend, considering that she'd yet to hire a public relations or marketing team. At the end of her workday, Angela picked up Melissa from school, returned home, completed her usual afternoon routine with her children, did the workout that she'd missed that morning. And when she returned home, she found Miss Brenda in full-on Chef Boyardee Negro mode. Miss Brenda was preparing 6 or 7 meals that Angela could just defrost, pop in the oven, reheat, and enjoy with her children over the next several weeks. With all of the money that Angela had at her disposal, she wouldn't spend a dime for a nanny because she didn't trust anybody with her children. Angela just smiled and said, "Thank you so much, Mom Brenda." Miss Brenda turned around and said, "You're welcome, baby. Now, have you figured out whether you're ready to read that letter?" Angela froze. Immediately, it came back to her memory what Miss Bella said to her when she ran into her at Bedtime. "It looks like you're almost ready."